How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network. Link, I don't know, because I'm doing 2 episodes this week, and this one might actually be recorded first and uploaded later, but you don't really care either way. You're just going to listen to whatever I put out in the feed. Let's be honest. I'm your host, Spencer Presley, and joining me is a friend I've known for a very long time, and I've been too nervous to ask. His name is Adrian. Adrian, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I know no matter how I try, I would mispronounce this.
Yeah, my name is Adrian Schmettau. It's German. It looks long, but it's actually only 2 syllables. Not too hard to pronounce once you know how to. But yeah, that is me. Did you want to introduce me, or should I introduce myself?
I was ready to see how you were gonna hand it back out, because you're right. I can't just have you say your last name for it. Yeah. Let's just go into a quick who you are, and then we'll kind of go into why you're here.
All right, so I guess the easiest background to start with is how I know Spencer, or Torchwood. I don't know what you go by as your host name, but
I cringe. I have many friends in the community and who do podcasts. Using my online name as the podcast name sounds super awkward to me. I'm just Spencer. I find it so weird.
All right, that's good. Feel free to bleep that out. But yeah, anyway,
you're good.
So anyway, yeah, I am formerly unofficially still working for. It's all kind of a weird situation, but I'm involved with the company Limited Run Games. We are a publisher of physical games for PlayStation 4, Switch, and formerly the PlayStation Vita, as well as a few other smaller platforms that we do. We do limited physical runs of what tend to be smaller, previously digital-only games that we feel are noteworthy enough or high quality enough to warrant a physical release. This is for multiple reasons. One goal is preservation. Another is, it just is cool to have physical hard copies of games you love in your hand. Put it on your shelf. It's just collectors love it. We've got nice. Collectors love/hate us. That it's a love-hate relationship with the collectors for sure. But we try to do really nice collector's editions. We do collector-focused branding. We do numbering on everything in a line of games, which is going to be just every PlayStation 4 game, every Switch game. It has an index basically. So if you were interested in collecting a whole set, you could line them all up and have that little LR number next to it. So as for me,
I have to interject. You can't say I'm very loosely attached. Maybe will they, won't they? Ross and Rachel with LRG, and then just go into straight on sales pitch. Because I was just expecting, oh hey, I'm a game developer. I do blah blah blah. You may have heard of me. I'm ready for you to have the sheet pulled out in front of you. That was. Are you that hardwired into when it comes to talking about LRG? You got to go through the whole thing.
Honestly, I didn't realize that I just did that until you pointed it out. It is basically automatic at this point because I've done events and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I did hacks. I've done a couple smaller ones.
And I mean, you do it on the streams and stuff. So I mean, I get it for sure. It's just I had to hold myself back from just laughing at the fact who's Adrian? Yeah. Let me tell you about Limited Run.
Yeah. So I guess that was accidentally a plug, but yeah, I've gotten so used to doing the spiel because we're kind of we're big, but we're not a household name, I would say. So there are a lot of people at cons who will come up and be like, "Hey, what's your deal? I played this game on, I downloaded this game like 5 years ago. Why are you selling it for $30? So that's the kind of spiel I have to go into. But yeah, it's automated, but I hope that was that was illuminating for anyone who is not familiar with LRG.
Yeah, somewhere out there you're getting like somewhere out there LRG just Venmoed you like $5. You get
Yeah. I need to get some what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a C. You get it at the store when you work retail and you sell stuff. Commissions.
capitalism. That's true. That's true.
Well, yeah. Commissions was the word I was looking for, but yeah, that too. But yeah. Anyway, so myself.
Adrian, the person, not the corporate brand.
Yeah,
Your time is the
mhm,
Wendy's Twitter
yeah,
handler. What are
yeah.
you
I
as a
have
person?
as me, Adrian, my personal brand. I'm a game programmer. I've done work in the past. Before Limited Run Games was Limited Run Games, I was the lead programmer on Breach and Clear, which is our first and one of our more infamous releases, one of our sought-after releases for LRG. But I played a big part in the actual development of that game. Then the sequel, Breach and Clear Deadline. I have programmed a handful of ports for limited run games. I ported Night Trap to and Double Switch to the Switch also. Cosmic Star Heroine. That's a game that I would think that a lot of listeners of the podcast would be fans of and be into. So definitely check that one out. If you're going to check out one limited run games release, I would plug Cosmic Star Heroine
Well, fun
on
fact.
whatever your platform choice is.
Fun fact. If not by the end of the month, unless something terribly, terribly, terribly wrong goes wrong, Robert actually from Zboid Games is probably going to come on the show because I had no idea, but he is a huge SMT fan.
Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He seems to he's one of those guys that has somehow been able to play like every single like old school JRPG, like the whole series of games. He seems like really knowledgeable about that stuff. Way more than me, that's for sure.
Well, his was great. Whereas, like, when I found out you liked SMT, I reached out and was like, oh, hey, that's cool. You should come on the podcast sometime. When I found out he brought up, because he was talking about Tokyo Mirage Sessions, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't know you liked SMT. And without responding, he just links me his GameFAQs guide to the original, like, 1990s Soul Hackers that he did.
Oh
And I'm
wow,
like,
like the Saturn.
I'm like,
That's
and the craziest part about that is I've used that guide and I never once thought of who wrote it. It was like so weird for me.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
Cosmic Star Heroine. Just to go back on topic a little bit, I did the Switch port of that. By the way, Zboid is as well as being knowledgeable game developers or gamers in general. They're very great to work with. Both great guys, Bill and Robert. Just cool guys. But okay, so that's about what I did at Limited Run Games. But last summer, I decided to technically break away from the company. It's a very, very complicated situation, but the long and short of it is I am working on an independent game project. It's one I've been working on in my spare time for many years now. But it is currently like in full swing development right now, being funded by Limited Run Games, eventually published by them. So it all circles back. It is not an RPG. It is an action adventure game. That's pretty much all I want to talk about right now. I hope to show more towards summer 2020. This is being recorded in January 2020. So if you're listening to this and there's nothing about my game out in summer 2020, then just like abuse me on social media.
so I gotta ask because I'm not gonna prod you on what it is because actually I don't even know what it is. I know you've been working on this for a while now. I want to just as a really fun like okay, you have total control of whatever you want to do in terms of showing and announcing your game without giving us any details about what it is besides the genre. If you could pick one venue to announce it, how would you announce your upcoming game?
Uh, the X Games. It would just be like a commercial, like they show the sponsors, and it's like there's Mountain Dew, and then there's like Monster or whatever, and then it's the launch or it's the teaser trailer for our game.
That would be great.
Yeah.
The only thing that'd be better is you like you would be on like every can of like whatever drink sponsored the X Games that year, and it's just like scan this QR code for exclusive game trailer.
Oh, okay. That would pardon me. That would be fantastic. I would love to do something like that. But it will probably end up getting revealed either just like kind of on its own on the internet or possibly at some sort of E3 event. Who knows?
That is very very funny. Just I you could have given me all night to think of different events, and I would not once have thought of the X game. But once you said it, that seems like the most fitting thing ever.
Yeah. I will say, like, so the game has been shown before, but we're kind of in the middle of rebooting it a little bit, and it's not really going to look exactly like what it did before, but it is a skateboarding themed game. You will be using
Oh, then I actually
it
do know
is
what this game is. Okay.
you kind of do. It's not quite the same thing anymore, but it is similar. So
Okay.
it doesn't have a name yet. So there's that.
Okay,
Um,
so I wanted to bring you on here because as we mentioned, you are a Megaten fan. What is if you had to create a dating profile summary, what is your history of how you got into SMT and what is your current kind of affiliation with it as a fan?
so I think it started probably I don't remember the exact year. I feel like it had to be either 2009 or 2010. Um, I'd been like into JRPGs before. I had like a phase in like the early 2000s just like getting into them. Like I played like a bunch of PS1, PS2 RPGs and I went back and played some 16-bit stuff via emulator, but I never got into any of the SMT games or the spin-offs. It was I'm this is going to basically out me as like a bandwagon hopper,
Oh,
but
no
Persona
way.
4
No way. No,
Persona
dude.
4 was the first SMT game I actually played all the way through. I did get Persona 3 a little bit before that, but didn't get into it until like I tried Persona 4 first. But I was like I really loved Persona 4. Like it was just like popular in my friend circle, and I wasn't really that into RPGs at all at the time. I was, more into like competitive PC shooter type stuff at the time. But no, Persona 4, I was just like immersed in that game. Like it was just I was working at the time. I was still in school, so I didn't have all that much time to play games. So like that was like the one game I played for a whole summer, and that was how long it took me to beat it.
That's really funny that you think P4 is like the bandwagon game because for the longest time I think it's had that reception from a lot of people. But as like someone who's met so many different people from the community, I think a lot of time is going to have to pass for Persona 3 to not be like the Final Fantasy 7 of this series. Like 4
Yeah,
got a lot of attention, but honestly, like after its dancing game kind of came out, like outside of people advocating how good 4 is as a game in general, the big one that is like the one I always hear got people into the game the most is always P3.
yeah. I mean that makes sense. That's where it shifted into like the dungeon crawling and relationship, not simulator, but relationship choices type of game. The dating elements came in. I saw a meme floating around on Twitter the other day, and it was like it just showed Persona 3, 4, and 5, but the numbers like they redesigned the logos to be like Persona 1, 2, and 3,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
was a.
I did see that going around.
But yeah, that does make sense. But yeah, Persona 4 just pretty much everything about it. The aesthetic, love the music, just the visual graphic design, like the menus, just the style. It really sucked me in.
That's really surprising because I've known you were into the series, but have held off asking these questions for the show, and I would have like totally guessed anything but 4. That's like really surprising just because how bright and cheery it kind of is compared to the games and everything else that I know you're really into. So where do you go from you beat 4? Like where do you kind of go from there?
Um, I went back and tried 3, but like I liked 3. I played it more that time, but at that point I was feeling kind of burned out on long RPGs, so I just kind of dropped it. Definitely nothing against the game. I was into it, but at this point I don't know if I'll go back to it just because like I have less and less time to play long excuse me, long RPGs.
Well, I'd say because you probably, I'm guessing, only played the PS2 version, right?
Yeah.
Like that version, especially after going back from 4, where you have direct
Oh,
command over everybody. Like going from 4 to 3 is like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make it harder and also less fun at the same time.
yeah, so I should clarify. I don't actually remember how much changed, but I did actually play Persona 3 FES. I never played the original.
Not a ton, and honestly, there's the content that is changed in the original content before the answer in Fez is like super sequential. Like that's not really as drastic. I will say this though, if you ever get a chance, Persona 3 Portable is basically if you want to experience everything from Persona 3 in terms of gameplay and story as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Although the unfortunate thing
If
with that is you pretty much have to play it on a PSP, PC, or Vita, and nothing else.
yeah, that kind of dampens my enthusiasm a little bit. But let's see, what did I play after 3? Because there was definitely a gap there. Actually, I'm pretty sure I went right on to SMT4.
Oh yeah, that would have been around the same time because yeah, 4 came out in
It was like
2012.
2013.
You know, you're right.
Um,
Persona 4 was 2012. 2013 was because that was the same year as Fire Emblem Awakening.
let's see. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so I played that when it came out. That's another game I actually never got around to finishing. It turns out I'm very bad at finishing long RPGs in general.
Well, I don't know if you
Like
knew
there's so
this,
many
but
games
but
that I
remember SMT4 at the time was like almost. I mean, not even almost. It's still to this day memishly called by like Western journalists the Dark Souls of Persona.
yeah, I like got just annihilated in that those early. I mean, just like the starting dungeon was just brutal. It got easier after that, but like that starting 3 4 hours maybe is just it felt like I was just like rolling dice and just getting owned. It was a struggle to get through that.
Well, because the weird thing with 4, especially if it was your first proper SMT game, as it was with a lot of people, because while Nocturne was popular back on the PS2, it was nowhere near as popular as the release of 4 on the 3DS, because that actually had like a proper big Western push with Nintendo and everything else. Like, and the weird thing about how that game is set up, I think 4 is a really great game to recommend for people as their first entry into the series, but like you were mentioning, that first dungeon, basically until you beat Minotaur, the game is it's putting you through the trials and tribulations of tutorial mode without actually telling you or showing you everything really clearly and obviously. So if you're not paying attention to everything and not kind of doing everything the way it should be done, that first boss is just going to seem like a total slog and grind fest, and the game gets considerably easier once you get into Tokyo and get past that. Like it has a couple other humps in the way, but on it, like he's I don't even know if Atlas does it on purpose because like I feel like almost every game has that one boss at least for Mega 10 games. Whereas like I know
Mhm.
Nocturne has the Matador, like that one
Yeah,
boss that
I
just pushes
know.
everyone to their limit.
Yeah, I love those Matador memes. Those are good. But I will say, while we're on the subject of Shin Megami Tensei 4, I could go into a little bit before we like continue on with my history of the series. I could go into why I think that first dungeon area, if you've never played an SMT, a really interesting like kind of experience and feeling that you do not get out of a lot of games, especially RPGs.
Yeah, go for it.
So one like something that you don't really realize until you've played a game that has dialogue like this is that like so many games with lots of dialogue, especially JRPGs, they like are pretty much never hostile to the player. Like the player themselves, not like the character you're playing as. But like, especially with SMT5, when the character you're making is basically yourself, there's not even really an avatar for the most part. It's just because you're in first person, you're not really like you're kind of just associating with yourself as a person more than the character, especially at that point early in the game, and you encounter these demons and they're like just like straight up assholes to you. They make fun of you. They talk all kinds of shit. Like I don't remember some of the exact lines, but it's just a kind of hostility that you get both in the dialogue and in the gameplay where you're just getting wiped over and over again that I thought was a refreshing experience that I was not expecting from a game like that. Even with dark themes that the SMT games have, like there are lots of other series that have dark thematics that aren't nearly as hostile to the player.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as well because the way the talking mechanic works to either get demons to spare you in battle, join your team, and everything like that. Their vocabulary and the way like they talk to you, I've only ever like seen anything so jarring. I guess the best comparison I have is to how out of the norm it is for how most JRPGs vocabularies are for at least the English localized ones is like when you
Yeah,
first play a Final Fantasy game and then go to a proper Dragon Quest game. Because while those games are localized in English, their dialect is totally different because they speak in like ye old English. Like that is how that's not a goof in like each town. It's like no, that the way they talk is that is how that world talks to each other. So learning the dichotomy between okay, here is how you talk and get missions and everything else, and then immediately when you're in a battle, like the best comparison I can think off the top of my head is like imagine you had to walk up into a room of people who make those shit posting pages on Facebook. And then you had to become
yeah,
friends with one of them and not lose your like limb or an item or money.
yeah. That's a good description for sure. Um, the other thing is about the demon dialogue is when you play games with or a lot of other games with non-human characters, like most fantasy games, even something like Mass Effect with the different alien species, they they have different customs or whatever, but they could easily be like they're like recognizable as human basically in the way that they behave, the way they think, but the demons in SMT, like they are demons. They're weird. They're inscrutable. They don't really have like a sense of logic that you can really associate with as a human. Like it's actually otherworldly, and I think that's another thing that makes it more unsettling compared to other dialogue heavy games.
Yeah, because there's really still nothing even like it. There's other monster catching RPGs and similar genre series, but yeah, the way the demons kind of talk to you, you it almost makes it more believable just in the way they talk, which is kind of really impressive when you look at how the demons are presented. It's almost pretty low budget because for the most part, and I'd say well over like 60% of Atlas's game library with SMT, and even including Persona, they are static pixel art images. That's about it.
Yeah.
So going on from four, what was kind of like your? Did you just kind of like fall off of it, or was there like a certain point you were like kind of stopped and just never went back to?
I don't recall running into like any kind of stopping point. Like it felt like pretty easy after I got out of that one. There was like an early forest area, and I don't remember exactly what happened after that, but
Oh yeah, because I think it's like right early on when you're chasing the Black Samurai, right? And there's like a big horde battle
yeah,
you got to do.
that sounds about right. Yeah, but I don't remember exactly what it was, but I've always had a bad habit of just like I'll take a break from a game and like I intend to go back to it and then like it's been a week and I'm just like, I'll just move on to another game. It's like that era started where there was just so much good stuff to play coming out like constantly, like early 2020 early 2010s. That's about when I would say like the that generation of consoles really started kicking off.
Well, yeah,
And there was
there was a time where you could almost theoretically, if not buy every game, at least kind of try every game. Whereas
yeah,
you're right, in the early 2010s and stuff, especially after like the start of the like PS4 and Xbox One, it was just like, okay, games are coming out every month. Games are coming out every other week. Games are out almost every day now, and no one's ever going to play all of them.
yeah, and like I was playing a lot more downloadable indies at that point. That was like right. I had like had a full-time job multiple years at that point, a stable job, so I was playing. I had more money and like a more stable like free time to play games, so I was definitely playing a lot more at that time.
Rub it in.
Um,
Must be nice.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it had its downsides for sure, but and now I'm like in fun employment, so to speak, right now, but
Well,
it's still
I
kind
gotta
of the same
ask,
workload.
do you still kind of have the same way of dropping a game and finding it either impossible or like really, really hard to get back to?
Yes.
Because I've been going through that, whereas like I kind of had like my first like touch of like not like full on depression, but like 2017, yeah. So like a month or so before like Persona 5 came out, I got into this weird funk where I didn't want to play anything. I think the only game I ever really played was like I just beaten Breath of the Wild, and then it just kind of hit me like right before Persona 5 came out. I was playing Puyo Puyo Tetris, and anything that wasn't Puyo Puyo Tetris, I was just like, I hate playing everything, and I'm motivated to not do anything for the longest time. And I had a lot of games like kind of suffer. That's why I'm actually going through Persona 5 now because I've still never beaten it. I was like 20 something hours into the game, uh, and I picked it up it was like, okay, I could have continued on, but my brain has just forgotten every single little detail about what it's like to control the character, what's going on in the story. That it's like I should just start this over from the beginning and just go all the way through. Because like the idea of picking that up like 2.5 years later, my brain would be so useless, and I'd spend more time trying to remember what happened than actually paying attention.
All right, so I guess we can just jump ahead to Persona 5 then, because guess what? I also have not finished Persona 5.
Yeah,
Um,
you're my first guest who hasn't beaten that game. That makes me feel a lot better now.
yeah, so okay, unlike this is okay, so I've both not beaten Persona 5 and I've not beaten SMT4.
We're gonna get to
They're
this
for
episode and find out you've only beaten Persona 4, aren't we?
yes, that's true. That is a fact. As far as SMT games go, I've
Hmm.
beaten a lot of other games. Um, but yeah, Persona 5, that came out. Was that February or so? Did Persona 5 come out before or after the Switch? Because I remember it
It
coming out
came
in
out
February.
after. It was going to be February. Remember, this was like delay 9000 of 2000 and whatnot. It was going to be Valentine's Day of 2017.
That was it.
The December in 2016 is when they announced it got delayed into April. I don't remember the exact date in April, but it came out very, very like mid-April.
Okay, yeah, I remember that annoying me because I wanted to play Persona 5 before Breath of the Wild
I
because I
mean,
knew
yeah,
Breath of the
everyone
Wild.
kind of did because like it was like okay, any game that's coming out after the Switch is it going to be have to be like the hottest shit ever, or everyone's gonna forget it or complain it's not on the Switch.
Yeah, and I think Nier Automata came out like right around the same time,
Hmm.
and I wanted that. I got that, and that's another game I still haven't beaten.
As
There's a
someone
lot.
that was another
Yeah,
game that fell into my like don't play anything. I beat that last year for the first time finally. That game, even going for like the platinum and getting all the endings, super super recommendable, and actually is way less of a time commitment than even I thought it was with the multiple playthroughs.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's one I do actually intend to go back to at some point. But Persona 5, um, I think it is too long. That's not like a
That's the
criticism.
coldest take I've ever heard because everyone I've talked to
Yeah,
is like this
yeah.
game is too long. Well, all right, what was your point when you realized that? For most people I've talked to, it's either the second to last dungeon or the last dungeon. Everyone's like this game's too long.
So somehow I still haven't spoiled myself for it.
Me neither. I
I
have no
don't
idea
know
either.
like what I don't know how many dungeons I have.
Um,
I was like I know the dungeon I stopped playing in. It's like some kind of factory dungeon.
Hmm. I'm trying.
That's
Basically, I
the
think
that's
the
the
easiest
theme.
way to say what it is without spoiling it, I guess. What party member had you met before that dungeon?
Um, that I excuse me. That I don't actually remember. I do know that like the boss of the level had something to do with fast food.
Okay.
Like that was something. It was like the fifth or sixth dungeon.
Yeah. So you're honestly at that point, yeah, you're basically over 2/3 of the way into the game.
Yeah, so my game clock, I think when I stopped was like at least 60 hours.
Hmm.
And like I knew I was not close to the end. So I was like, you know what? This is just like too much time. Like I even like I pretty much play all RPGs on normal difficulty if there's a difficulty setting. And I ended up bumping percent just cuz like it wasn't that hard. It was just like tedious after a certain point, just the combat. There was just too much of it. Like dungeons too long, too many returns.
Do you recall how long it took you to beat Persona 4, perchance?
Yeah, it was right around 80 hours, and that was with the true ending.
Okay. So, like, in your head, do you think it's just the time, or do you think it was how the game was using your time that kind of
Oh,
deterred it?
definitely how the game was using my time. Like I played Breath of the Wild for well over 100 hours, and I didn't get bored like that. I enjoyed all of my time with that. But Persona 5, it just had too much combat. It was a little bit too slow. Um, I did appreciate some of the dungeon layouts, like as far as just how you navigate them, the design and stuff like that.
The fact
But
that it actually had design to it, it's not just the whole
yes,
order. Yeah.
absolutely. But I don't know why it feels like even with those upgrades, I felt like getting through combat was more tedious in 5 than it was with 4, even though in 4 you're just like going through, block hallways the whole game.
I get that for sure, because even me going through it now, I'm amazed at how much filler there is in the game without like almost a skip ahead option, and it makes me really excited for Royal because even though they've added so much new content, they basically have said it's going to take as long as the original version of the game is to beat, so about 100 hours. But that's with a whole new third semester. So basically, they're cutting out a whole bunch of dead filler while also filling in the days with more. Because I don't even think that it's filler is the problem. I think it's that spending 5 days in a row after I've beaten a palace just to like hit balls at the batting cage isn't fulfilling on like day 3.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they use that time. And I've paid very very little attention to like how it was critically received after its Japanese release. What's your at least opinion right now for Royal? Are you gonna wait for a price drop? Are you thinking you'll pick it up on day one?
It really depends on when's it coming out? It's
March
for
31st
oh wow,
this
that's
year.
a really horrible, horrible time for it to come
You know
out.
what? It used to
Um,
be worse. Remember, we're now in a
yeah,
post Final Fantasy Cyberpunk and other stuff Iron
y-
Man delay world.
yeah. I appreciate the delays for both Final Fantasy and especially Cyberpunk.
Hmm.
Um, I want to play. It kind of came out of nowhere for me, but I'm really interested in trying out Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the remake for Switch. I've never played a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, but I do like Sheer and the Wanderer, which is kind of basically the same thing,
I
but
mean, it is.
without
Yeah,
the
it's
Pokemon.
literally even the same dev team from Spike. So yeah.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you check out the demo?
I have it downloaded. I haven't played it yet.
I've
I
heard
do
it
intend
is
to.
very good at getting a grasp of what the core gameplay is like, and criminally
Yeah,
short.
I bet the download was really small, so I was like, huh, well, this is probably like a very, very tiny slice of the game.
Also hard to tell because Nintendo is actually probably doing black magic when they optimize their games. Because
Oh yeah.
when they like make, because like I know how some of it works, but I remember when Smash Ultimate came out and it's under 16 gigs, I was like, music wise alone, that doesn't make sense to me. It was so crazy.
Yeah, and that's why. Sorry, physical gamer fans out there. There's probably not going to be Ultimate Cart with all the content
You know what? I
on
actually
Cart in a
bet
few years.
I bet you once Sakurai's done with DLC, I think again Nintendo very rarely does complete edition re-releases. I bet with Smash Brothers they would, because think about just the same box art, but now have like a new mural with all the DLC characters on the cover. I bet you that would sell a lot of people to double dip.
That, I mean, yeah, that's not wrong. I guess that might be like their use case for the 32 gigabyte carts that are.
Well, because even now Smash is I don't even think Smash is over 20 gigs, is it? Even with all the updates.
Yeah, it's not really that big, but they would have to dip into the 32 gigs, which I don't think anyone has done except for
Oh,
Bethesda.
no, actually, Bethesda's the big cheapskates. Bethesda never does anything over 16. I actually don't even think Bethesda's done 16 gig carts, because I know Doom they
Huh.
fit into 8 gigs, which I was going to play Doom originally for the very first time when the Switch port came out, and then I found out that the complete single player is on the cart. They fit it into like 7-ish gigs or so, but there's a
Yeah.
mandatory update for all the multiplayer that literally no one likes and no one plays, and that's like what
Oh
you have to
God.
download the rest
Yeah.
on. Jesus, yeah. Even when I popped it in PS4 recently for the first time, I was like, 32 gigabytes of this game is just multiplayer. Like, I appreciate when games like let you, hey, do you want to download this? Cause like that's a whole lot of space that I'm never gonna touch. But no, going into
Excuse me.
32 gig, the only games that have ever done it are The Witcher 3 just did it recently with its Switch port, and at launch, I'm still amazed we never got this in the West. Square Enix did Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 on one cart for the Switch, but that was only in Japan. That's the like Muso like game.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, just to go on a tiny tangent, Persona 5 Scramble.
Ooh,
I'm actually
ooh.
looking forward to that. It is the
I
first,
am so glad you're saying that, because yeah, that game is gonna catch so many people on surprise. That game looks so good.
like, I could not get into either. I'm not really a Muso guy, but I did get Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors, and I couldn't really get into either of them, but this one actually does look like significantly different from that mold.
I mean,
And I
it's kind
love the
of
Persona
weird.
5 aesthetic.
It's kind of weird to say how ambitious it looks, not even in that like kind of condescending way as a Muso title, where it's like I don't know how much of the trailers you've seen, but it's like there is like mini games, there's platforming, there's stealth, there's actually a story, not like a Hyrule Warrior story where you kind of have a story but not really. Like it's a propped up as a full-on sequel, and they have all this stuff going into it. Where I think that game's gonna have really low and bad pre-order numbers, but assuming it comes out next month and isn't a huge dumpster fire, I bet that game's gonna sell really, really well, just based off the fact that it is a proper story. It looks good. It actually looks better than Royal, which I think is kind of why we probably haven't had it officially announced for the West. Because like graphically, that game blows Royal out of the water. Like Royal still looks like a PS3 game.
Yeah, I mean there was only so much that they were gonna do with the graphics with Royal,
Hmm.
because like those assets were all made for PS3, so they'd have to like remake so much stuff. And obviously Scramble, it was always developed with current gen in mind, with it working on Switch. So one, you're gonna get it to be pretty well optimized and have like better image quality than usual on PS4. I wish it was coming out on PC, but I'll be getting it on PS4 for sure.
I would not be surprised if it does. Koei Tecmo games almost always skip PC and Xbox in Japan, and they usually launch worldwide. So that would be honestly a pretty safe bet, even as a Persona game. So I would say don't be too worried about a PC port at launch.
So interesting. So you think that this is actually going to be the thing that finally cracks Persona or like any SMT at all on a PC?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that is funny. I guess it would be the first title, because our last time a Atlas game hit PC was Catherine Classic, but that doesn't really count as like a proper
Yeah.
one. Our last real one, I think, and the listeners will probably correct me, Revelations Persona did get a PC port. It was either that or SMT If. I know got proper PC
Mm.
ports. But yeah, this is all a Koei Tecmo thing, because they do so much of it in-house. Like Atlas is developing it primarily from like a story and a music and a producer aspect of it, and a lot of it is
Yeah,
just going to
yeah.
be Koei Tecmo. That's why honestly I am amazed they still haven't announced. I know it would have bunched up really close to Royal's release date, but Koei Tecmo also does all the localizing for their games in house unless a team is taking over for them, which is very rare. That's why a lot of their titles release day and date in the West as they do overseas, just because their games don't always have a ton of stories. So localizing it even in Japan for them into English with dubbing is not that hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of funny. I didn't really think about Xbox and PC till you brought up the PC version. But yeah, that I would not be surprised about. At the very least, guaranteed to come down the line, because it's always looked like on the outset that they're kind of avoiding it, when in reality, due to like, I don't even know if it's fair to say NDAs, just like strict Japanese businessman decisions are the real reasons, because they just don't have anything they can port. Like, your best option right now is Persona 5, which is tied to a console exclusivity to PlayStation. So they can't do any of those games. Catherine was a weird edge case where the actual reason Catherine Classic came out as opposed to Full Body is because PlayStation paid for exclusivity on Catherine Full Body on Vita and PS4, but they never did with the original, hence why it came out on 360 back in the day.
Yeah. Um, like based on the PC market, I think like oddly enough, I think like the 4 and 4 Apocalypse would actually be pretty good fits. There's a pretty solid market for the Wizardry games on Steam, which
Oh yeah.
are like developed in Japan. They're like exclusively developed in Japan for the last like 10 years. Those games like really hit it off there. I mean, that's basically where the JRPG system design came from. So it's
It's really
all
tough though, because I think they'd probably be nervous about, you can't, like, you can obviously emulate and put a wrapper of a 3DS game onto PC fairly easily, but in terms of asset wise, that game's gonna look ugly on almost any screen bigger than like 12 inches, you know? So I think that's probably keeping them back from it, because then they're gonna have to go back and touch up a whole bunch of unique assets in the game, 3D and 2D.
excuse me. Yeah, that's probably true. Um, just in terms of the visuals, but like the gameplay, the first person dungeon crawling,
Oh
that's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's like kind of the big thing. Um, I'm wondering like how well like a kind of series of remasters of their PS2 RPGs would do on Steam. Like
It's really
you got an
weird
like
because
a Nocturne and like Digital Devil Saga or whatever that.
yeah,
There
yeah,
was like
because
something Saga. There
yeah,
were two of
there was
those on
digital
PS2.
Devil Saga, Devil Summoner 1 and 2, and Nocturne were like the big SMT games we got in the West. Because I don't know, were you very big into PS3 back in the day?
Not really.
So
I got a PS3 when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, and then I was really let down by Metal Gear Solid
oh
4,
my
and
god.
I just didn't really mess with PS3 too much
Well,
after that. I played like
you
the big
just broke my heart.
exclusives,
You
but
just broke my heart.
yeah,
But I'm gonna the quick summary of it is PS2 Classics started, I think, around 2010, 2012, in between that area. They're basically the same as the way PS4 handles the PS2 Classics, just minus the trophy support. And the
yeah,
biggest games for the longest time, because initially Rockstar hadn't touched them, was a lot of really obscure RPGs. So like Atlas was really early onto it, and they brought all those games over, and they were always like the number one games. It was always like Persona 4, Persona 3, SMT, and then you'd maybe see like I don't know, like Smuggler's Run or some other weird like PS2 game that wasn't like GTA. Yeah, those sold crazy, crazy well, and they were just straight rips. Like they were up-res, obviously, like because the PS3 could make PS2 games look a lot better. I think those would handle really, really well. Uh, They're just like it's really weird. They're like not a small developer. They have the teams they could dedicate to porting and even contract out other games. They're just so like funnel visioned in terms of we have our teams, we have our current projects. We don't need to port these old games because guess what? New games are a lot more profitable with like things like merchandising and sequels and adaptations and everything else like that. But like you bring up, there's this huge market who loves playing all those games still constantly. Like I still see people talk about Digital Devil Saga. I still see people talking about even the original Persona 2. Like it's really weird in terms of how most big Japanese companies really dig into their nostalgia, like how Final Fantasy, you have to go out of your way to find a platform that doesn't have a single classic Final Fantasy. Whereas like anything Atlas, the last time they ported an old game onto a new system was 2013's iOS only port of SMT1, which was very bad, and then later got I don't even know what the correct term I guess would be. It got updated into not being able to function anymore because that
Oh yeah, like the iOS version
yeah, I think it
deprecated
was
it
like iOS
basically.
when iOS 11 happened a couple of years ago. If a game didn't get updated to work with it, it basically just got nuked.
Yeah, like my the first game I released commercially got nuked that way. You can't play it on iOS platforms anymore.
Not
So,
true unless you're talking about something that's not breach and clear.
no, I'm talking about Muse. It was a game I worked on before that.
What was
That was
what? Give me the pitch on Muse. I've never heard of this.
I'll have to link you the details later, but it was a third-person shooter when that was kind of like a new thing on iPhones. We
MUSE,
got
right?
MUSE with apostrophes. It was like an acronym. It's the name I could not even begin to explain why it's called that right now. But it was a third person shooter back when that was kind of an innovative new thing that you could do on iOS. And it didn't really succeed, but this was where I met Josh, the founder of Mighty Rabbit Studios and Limited Run Games. We were together in the same incubator, both my company and his. And
Wait.
our game failed, but
You were also part of the Joystick Labs thing?
oh yeah, yeah, I sure
I
was.
did not know this at all. That's crazy. What was your company's name?
Labrat Studio.
Oh, you're right. I have heard of that before.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
Huh.
that is where both myself and Shadi El Haddad, the art director at Limited Run Games, uh, that was uh, that was our company, and that didn't go so well. And Josh recognized that we were good at what we did, so he brought us on. This was
This is
back
so
in
trippy
like,
for me.
yeah.
I'm actually watching some footage of it right now that someone has on YouTube. Thank you, Capsule Computers, for having 2012 footage of off-screen iOS Muse gameplay.
Oh God. But yeah, I programmed like 80% of that game.
That's so interesting. So just out of curiosity, how big was the team size? So it was you and Shaddy.
Yeah, me, him, and two other people who no longer work in games founded in 2010. We had like a handful of other people that we brought on kind of a contract basis. And we released it about after a year and a half of development of a very uh, tumultuous development. It was a pretty rough process, but we got it out, and it just kind of went out there. Like people were like, "This isn't terrible, but it's like really short, and the graphics aren't quite as good as like the competition that was out at that point." So it just kind of faded into obscurity, and some of us were able to find jobs at places that were doing okay, and some others didn't. And that's kind of how I got my start in the game industry.
Is that kind of like a is it like a weird feeling where your first major product you ever had released is not like easily accessible? Like I'm sure there are probably ways to play it out there, like from people who've
Oh,
like
you
backed
can,
up.
yeah. So there's an Android version also, and you can play that still on
Okay.
most modern phones. So that's like one way to play it. Like that's probably the ideal way to play it at this point. Honestly, the ideal way to play it is not to play it because it's really not that great. It's pretty much just interesting from a personal historical perspective.
I'm enjoying watching this way too much. Also, I did notice that that at least at episode 1 on the title screen, was this a episodic game or planned to be?
It was planned to be.
How
That is
how
the
much for
only
how much?
episode.
Oh, okay, so it's only episode. Was that just like a weird stifle that
Say that
all?
again.
Was that like a weird thing that all Joystick Labs game had in common? Why were they all episodic somehow? I noticed that was like a weird trend.
It was a trend, and we pitched it because it was trendy. The investors at this company were very not knowledgeable about games. They just kind of looked at whatever all the latest trends are, and when we pitched them those things, they were like, "Ah, yeah, episodic, that's in. iPhone, that's in." We originally wanted to make it a PC game because who actually wants to make a third-person shooter for iOS?
I'm
Like
looking at the
nobody.
HUD and I'm gonna say, yeah, you saying this was meant for PC, it makes a lot of sense looking at the HUD.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we wanted to do originally. So we basically just crammed a PC console shooter into an iOS game, and it didn't quite work as well as we would like. It has some neat elements. It has a arcade style scoring system that I came up with. That was my design contribution to the game. And I gotta say, not to toot my own horn that much, but in terms of the gameplay, that's like the best thing about it.
I'll
So
say I'm very unbiased. Obviously, I've never played it before, and I have no reason to toot your own horn. I feel like I know you well enough for you to believe that. For a game that came out, this was 2012, you said, right?
yeah, it
Like
started in
for a
August
2012
2010.
iOS game, it runs and plays looks a lot better than I would have given any third person shooter at the time, which, like you said, was not. That was just not a thing. Like I remember in 2012, memorable games for me were like Angry Birds, Tiny Wings, and like the Impossible game. That was like it. That was like, oh cool, it's a square and it's smooth.
Yeah, yeah, and somehow all of our investors like thought like 2 out of 5 games that came out of that incubator were going to be Angry Birds like type successes. So they didn't really have their expectations in whack. So, but you know
I
what?
appreciate this tangent more than I can ever describe to you. Cause yeah, I had no idea. I had figured you were like a lot of the other team and had started with breach and clears. That's really crazy. So going back with that though, so how does it kind of feel though? At least that when you found out that the game was no longer supported, was there ever a time where you were thinking like, ah, I should at least try to update it for like preserving it wise, or were you just kind of like, what's done is done. You can play it if you really need to play it.
Yeah, basically the latter. I still have the project files on my PC, and if I really wanted to put in the effort, probably wouldn't take me that long to get it to run just fine on like any modern PC or Mac. We already had keyboard and mouse and gamepad controls in for like just playtesting purposes when developing on PC. So it really would not be that much effort if I really wanted to put it out there for general use. I'd have to like go back and like get people's permission, but that's kind of like what I've had in my pocket as far as preservation. It's just like it was ideally not, for iOS, so I really don't care about that version being lost because it's like not the way I would want people to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really, it would just be a matter of like, am I interested enough in this to like, put in some effort and put it out there or not? And right now, I'm not sure.
I gotta be honest with you. I have no idea what the length is of it, but I'm just still watching this and honestly really enamored at all the different little like features and stuff that's in here. If for whatever you end up doing with your newest game, if by some means they are even remotely similar engines, because I'm guessing this was made in Unity.
Yes.
I have no idea whatever your new game is. This would be the perfect like Metal Gear Solid 3 moment of if you could somehow hide this game as a really obscure Easter egg and just you can play through, you have one life in arcade mode or whatever of episode 1 of Muse. And then whenever you're dead or whenever you reach the end of the level, then it's done. There's no one says anything happened. That would be like one of those really weird moments of like, what is this? Because honestly, like I looked it up. There is nothing on it besides like YouTube was the only place I could find videos of it before. There's no like websites or anything else still up there online.
Let me double check that. I think I let the domain expire.
That's so yeah, wow.
Um, okay, yeah, that's gone. But if you have a Facebook account, we still have a studio. If you search for, or sorry, we still have a page. If you search for Lab Rat Studio on there, and I am one of the administrators. There's a great meme that I just posted on there a couple weeks ago.
What? Why are you still? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. Why are you still updating the page on Facebook?
I just remembered it randomly. Like literally, there's a gap. There was a joke post in September 2016. Next post, December 31st, 2019.
This is fantastic.
By me.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I'm trying to find it now, but that makes for very boring radio. Okay. Mobile game tangent aside, Atlas is very bad about preserving the games, but because I know you do primarily, like you have almost all them, if not all the major consoles and stuff.
Oh, okay. So before we get too far,
Yeah.
I remembered something I was going to interject with like a while ago back in the conversation. So Sega, what do you recall what year they bought Atlas?
I know exactly what year. It was the same month that Persona 5 got announced. It got announced in 2012. Yes, that was the first big year of like our podcast because they had announced it for a winter 2014 release date for Persona 5.
That is crazy to think that it was announced 10 or 8 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so Sega began full control of Atlas in 2012. Since that, like Sega for as long as that, longer than that, honestly, they've been a very strong publisher on PC.
Yes, you would think they're still not owned with each other because when you look at how well at holding up their nostalgic history, Sega is really good at it, and by some weird like other side of it, Atlas after they got bought by Sega, have become almost a shell of their former company. Because like even beforehand, I don't know if you remember, Atlas used to be a weird publisher. They used to be like an NIS. They used to publish like weird fighting games, other stuff like that. They don't do that.
I mean, they publish Demon Souls in the U.S. They got that whole thing started.
Now people like to bring that up. My favorite game I like to remind the public because they always forget this and they wish people would forget this, but I'll never let them forget it. Atlas did publish the movie license game of R.A.P.D., the very famous Men in Black copy movie starring Ryan Reynolds.
I remember that game, funnily enough, because it came out a little bit after Muse did, and I recall thinking that they may have ripped off my scoring system.
Oh my god, you're right. There is a scoring system in there. Oh my god.
I'm like I might be the only person you ever interview that remembers the R.I.P.D. game. R.I.P.D. the movie, frankly. I never saw it, but no one talks about that movie.
Nobody did. Although I will say this. I at least interviewed the current at the time John Harden, the old Atlas PR manager. I remember I brought that up to him, and he would always, whenever I bring it up to him, whether it be on the show or even private, he'd be like, "Why are you bringing that up? No one associates their company with that game. Why do you need to bring up this terrible, terrible game? Which is why, like, I love remembering those weird things. Because while Atlas is an awesome publisher for bringing things over, like 3D Dot Game Heroes and Demon Souls, like, it's great to remember the weird stuff. Like, people aren't going to remember they published Cubivore or Disney's Kitchen. No, they didn't just publish Disney's Kitchen on the PlayStation 1. They developed that game. Like, Atlas as a company is known for really weird stuff that people don't always associate them with. Like the really, really bad NES Friday the 13th game. Atlas made that.
Oh God, they did, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Also,
Yeah, they've
I'd like to announce.
hold on a second. Now, do you am I imagining this, or is there someone with a credit on the Friday the 13th game that is now like a major like developer on the Persona games?
Like they made the movies credit, or they made the NES
No,
games
no,
credit.
the NES games credit.
They might. That Atlas has had team there for the longest time. Also, boy, I gotta. Sorry, I found the December 31st meme from your Facebook page post. And it's like the most low quality meme ever, but I really appreciated it.
Yeah, that's my meme. I made it like that long ago, I guess.
I'm proud to be the 557th person to like Lab Rat Studio.
Excellent.
I'm gonna look that up because you're right. That does seem very very similar for that, but they've had such a weird like tumultuous like developer thing because in case people don't know, if you're a prominent game developer and your name is not Keiji Inafune or you worked at Konami, you pretty much stay at your development office until you die. That's just kind of the unofficial rule.
Yeah. So just to put a cap on this, I just found a wiki page on the Megami Tensei wiki that says 1989 Atlas developed a game based on the Friday the 13th, blah blah blah. A number of staffers later went on to develop the SMT series, including Hideki Yokiyama and Hirohiko Takayama. So I don't know if those guys are super important, but
I do know the names, and I'll say this: at the very least, there is a Friday the 13th slash horror movies Easter egg still in Megami Tensei.
yeah.
There is a demon just known as Friday, and he wears bright pink pants and has
Yep.
Jason Voorhees mask with, I'm guessing, a mullet and a chainsaw that moves at 2 frames of animation, and it's the best thing since SMT4's image of Wicker Man.
They need to bring that guy back in this video game that I hear they've been making called Shin Megami Tensei 5.
You know what? Cause we might as well get into that because you're one of my favorite people back in the day. When I would talk to you about it, you would just be like, "What do you know about SMT5?" Because I would get that every now and then. The thing that I love bringing up to people, because I think people always get caught up in the weeds of where's SMT5, where's SMT5, and don't actually think about how weird it's going to be, like seeing an Atlas game made in a Western game engine with UE4, and like I don't know if my brain can even really wrap around what their demons are going to look like in that engine. Just because like when we saw it, it was so pie in the sky CG fodder. Like we have no idea really what that game's gonna look like for it, but I want to throw to you though, if you kind of had carte blanche or you worked on the team or had any sort of influence, what would you try to bring that style that all the SMT main series games have, specifically just for the demons? Let's kind of leave the anime side out of it with the characters. How would you transition that into like 3D models?
That's a great question. God, what would be a good art style for
Because
that?
think about it, without having a really good style or something to kind of base it off of, those models are not that complex. They could look really PS2-y really, really easily.
Yeah. So, and they're making it for Switch, so that like kind of puts the fidelity at a certain point
I
that you
mean,
want to like.
I don't think it's a very contentious thing to say. I'm willing to say there's at least 2 good Unreal Engine ports on Switch. Dragon Quest 11 and Dragon Ball Fighters are the only one I know that are like, yep, this still looks good on Switch. There are
Yeah,
games that play good, but definitely UE when you don't start with Switch, UE4 can be rough to port down to.
yeah. So I'm just gonna insert and pull out really quick a little plug here. My game coming out for Switch and PC, and it is using UE4. So look forward to a very high quality port. And yeah, there's the plug.
It's coming soon to X Games 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, important to
Whenever that
note, I don't
is.
know why I didn't say this. Are we talking proper X Games, or are you going to flip it on its head and do Winter X Games?
No, it would definitely be Summer X Games.
Okay, all right. The Goofy movie did it, so I mean, it only makes sense that your game would. That keeping
Yeah.
on brand.
Oh yeah, it's in the same canon.
Listen, I don't think Disney is very protective of its brands. I'm willing to bet if you made your game in the same cinematic universe as the Extreme Goofy movie, you would get zero lawyers. They would be proud to make that an official extension of the universe.
Yeah. We'll put that Easter egg in there.
Just the entire movie is just playing somewhere. It's like, listen, this
Oh
is
yeah.
canon. It's actually
I
like you'll have one level that's a college level, and only there's like a poster or like you can see the like coffee bar they went to. That's the only reference to it. But it's like, nope, this is the college from the Goofy movie.
yeah,
Oh my
that
god.
sounds good.
So yeah, going back to styles for it. Like, is there anything you can kind of think of like heavy shadows, like really thick lines of just like I even me, because I'm in the weird sense of even by the time they released Strange Journey on 3DS, I'm like, okay, this pixel art is still really good, but unless you're nostalgic for the series, these games are pretty cheap and lazy considering they've been using the same pixel art for like 20 years.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking in terms of at least like polygonal fidelity, probably just a little bit higher than the Persona 4 monsters, and just like a little bit more texture detail than that and some shading. And I think that would be a good start. Not necessarily the same like flat shady cartoony style that Persona 4 has, but yeah, something darker for sure,
All right, I have a
like
really weird
heavier
oddball
shadows.
idea. I don't know why this reminded me of it. What if they went in with the pixel look, but still keeping it polygonal? Do you remember the old man who would fuse your demons in SMT4? How he is basically
Yeah,
a 3D model, but still is made up out of pixels? I
yeah,
wonder how well that would translate if you kind of obviously not as floaty and moving all over the place, but it's like it's still a 3D model, but it is still primarily based in pixel art. How that would try to like if that would make it more like do you think that would be more work really or like less? Because obviously if you're still basing it off the original Kaneko like pixel art designs, you could make it a 3D model and just kind of thicken it up a lot easier than drawing and rendering a whole new item.
yeah. I think technically that would be easier, but you'd have a hard time, I think, making that look really that good in terms of like an HD style.
I still
Like
think
I'm not
Atlas.
sure like what kind of a like if that would have like that much of appeal for like the
We
entire
gotta
game.
remember there like with the exception of Nocturne, honestly even Nocturne doesn't even count as an exception. There's not a mainline Megaten game that's like, man, these graphics. Like they have really great style,
Yeah.
but they're like Persona is really like there's a reason Persona 5 resonated with so many people more than like other games where it's like they're known for like their style and like how much that pops whereas like no one's like even in like you mentioned the models like if you took the same Jack Frost model from Persona 4 and put it compared to the one from 5 they're not that different but just the shading and the stylizing of it they look like they're from two totally different generations which obviously they are but they're still using
Yeah.
the same polygonal base.
Yeah. And like there's not really that much of that stuff you can't do on Switch compared to PS4. Like it's really just like the shading that Persona 5 uses is not that technically complex, and the only downgrade you'd need to do on Switch is really just like texture resolution and like how many polys it's pushing.
My my realistic answer to what the demons are going to look like, and this is the most boring thing ever, but it's probably going to be true, is they're going to do what Koei Tecmo did with Fire Emblem. So, did you ever play Three Houses?
A little bit of it.
So
I
Fire,
that's a game I dropped fairly quickly.
that's okay. I'm a weird Fire Emblem fan where my only games I've actually played is Tokyo Mirage Sessions and the Fire Emblem Warriors game. So Koei Tecmo's whole modeling department and whatnot from Fire Emblem Warriors, all of those assets that people were fighting got brought in and basically were copy pasted into Three Houses. Three Houses runs on a very similar engine to Fire Emblem Warriors because they're taking all those old 3D models and making it work like that. And I would not be surprised if they do the same and Atlas just hires the same team who worked on Persona 5 Scramble, gets all of those demons they're putting in the game and putting them in SMT5 because Persona 5 Scramble already on Switch. So you know that they will work, and they've already dumbed down the models for 2 different platforms.
Man, yeah, I can definitely see that.
Like
That's a fairly real. That's an economical thing.
Yeah, it's like I hate that I know that because it's like it makes the most sense business wise. So that's why I hate it because it's the one that the fans want the least. Like that's like the one that people aren't going to get that excited about. Like if you just see like when you finally see SMT5 and you're just like, oh, okay, it's the models from Scramble. It makes it a lot less cool. Whereas like a thing like Fire Emblem, you can get away with that more because they're having to render hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of troops for those like zoomed out sections, so it doesn't really matter as much. Whereas it's still pretty much going to be an RPG at the end of the day, and you're gonna have to look at that model real close.
Yeah. God, I was gonna bring up something. Can't recall what it was.
Let's go back for a minute because we pretty much have talked about all the more contemporary Persona games. What has been your experience with SMT games besides 4? Like, which ones have you either picked up, tried, or want to look into? Because I'm going to say this right now. If you have not played SMT Strange Journey, I will be very surprised because that seems super up your alley.
I have not played Strange Journey.
That is basically,
I probably should.
It's basically Doom is Shin Megami Tensei, and I'm not even joking.
Okay.
And like
now that I'm aware of the premise.
To the extent of, I don't know if you've seen this or played this, there is a Doom mod that makes it play like SMT Strange Journey. So like they throw in the maps from the DS game because it is a first-person dungeon crawler. So converting those maps into a like Doom level is actually not that complicated.
I am definitely gonna have to check that out. The mod. Yeah, Strange Journey. I just never got around to, but I did play Nocturne. I got maybe 4 or 5 hours into it. I was just kind of casually playing it, so I kind of never expected to beat it. That was probably like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. But that's as far as games I've played in the series, that's pretty much it.
No, haven't messed around. None of the spin-offs caught your attention?
Does Persona 4 Arena count as a spin-off?
Considering you're talking to the man who probably held the only and longest running Fight Club for that and Ultimax, yes, that does count. That is one of my favorite spin-offs of all time, just because of how much of a Arc Systems fan / critic I am. Because, man, that game had a lot of problems, but at the end of the day, that was a really, really fun fighting game.
Yeah, that was pretty much the game we played in the Mighty Rabbit Studios office in God, maybe 2012. That sounds about right.
Now that not having a PC port is insane, but also goes back to the it's too late kind of thing. But it really sucks because if that got made now, Arc Systems would obviously put that on there like it. And I'm actually not sure. I'm pretty sure. Isn't BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle on PC? Because I know it's on PC and I know it's on Switch and PS4.
There's definitely at least one BlazBlue game on PC. I don't.
No, I know all the BlazBlue games are on PC, but I'm talking Cross Tag Battle because Cross Tag has almost everyone from Persona 4 Arena at least.
Yeah, they do have it.
Okay, yeah. If you ever got really desperate, I've somehow still not touched Cross Tag Battle just because that game had such a scummy release. But I think one day when they're finally done with all the DLC, I'll probably pick it up and be mad that I waited that long to try it.
Yeah. Oh, yep. It's got a. Yep. There's Teddy. He's a playable character on PC. So there's your Persona stuff for PC. It's all you're gonna get.
The way you made that sound literally makes it sound like you boot it up and it's just Teddy is the only Persona character in that whole game.
Yeah.
On a less
Uh,
depressing note, they at least did also add Adachi. So Adachi is in there. So there's one character
okay.
from Ultimax.
Nice.
That's so weird. I know you guys like at least now like the limited run studio play like a ton of Smash Brothers, but I would never have guessed like what was it about Persona 4 Arena that was like made it the it game. I would never have guessed that.
I don't know. It just kind of ended up being me like asking people to play it with me.
I think it also helped that that
Um.
game is super pick up and play friendly. Like I, I
Yeah.
I introduced my girlfriend to it recently at a convention we went to in Arizona, and because it is so friendly to mash and still play competitively, it's like I hadn't played it in probably like 2 or 3 years, and I immediately remembered all my combos by muscle memory, and she was still able to like pretend like she's had a chance of beating me, so everyone at least pretended they had fun.
Yeah. Like that was just kind of the how we did things back then. Like we just kind of didn't play Smash every single day. We played different games. Like we were into Towerfall for a while. Samurai Gun was another one we played a lot of. A
One day
little
the
bit of
sequel will come out, I think. Samurai Gun
yeah.
2 still not out, right?
Nope. I'm looking forward to it, but yeah, that's been in the works for a very long time. It feels like.
By the way, your Switch, is that the Office one that you play Smash Bros. On a lot? Because I noticed I was looking at your profile recently, because I have you as a friend on mine. Like, or is the 200 plus hours of Smash Bros. Just from you playing on your personal time?
Oh, that's me. That's me on my personal time.
Man,
I
that is
I
impressive.
play a lot of 1v1s. That's something at least like 2 or 3 nights a week I'll like do an hour of 1v1s. I'm
Who's
still
your
like very into that game.
who's your like I like playing as this person like said like it not just has to be one but like who's your usually your go to players?
My main rotation, I would say, really boring first two, but like they've just kind of been who I've been playing for years, and like I just like playing as them. Marth and Ike. Um, then I do a lot of Daisy, Pac-Man. Pac-Man's like kind of the weird character I like to play as. Game and Watch, Captain Falcon sometimes. Yeah, that's my general rotation, and I will say. I might be a rare person. I'm a very rare person who says this, I'm sure. Um, Byleth, the recent character announcement for Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm probably the one person who's like, hell yeah. Even though I didn't really get into Three Houses, just because she's the first of the DLC characters that actually appeals to my playstyle, honestly.
Really, is it just the multiple like weapons or what is it about Byleth?
Uh, the similarity with Marth and Ike, I would say, is that they're basically just floating hitboxes that you move around. It's like they're really basic, really simple, just melee only. Byleth does have the bow, but for the most part, she's just like a character with a variety of hitboxes, and that just like kind of appeals to me for whatever reason. I just like moving, like the floating around the battle arena. That's like I don't know. I really like Smash a lot more than traditional fighters, kind of for that reason.
That's really
Just kind of
interesting
the
because
free
that's really
flowing
interesting.
movement.
I wouldn't have guessed. I wouldn't have guessed that you would have been that into it, especially because you mentioned you were already into Marth and Roy for that reason. Do the Have you touched with many of the other Fine Loom characters? Because yeah, you're right. Obviously, Marth and Roy are like very like kind of like bread and buttery in their simplicity, which is kind of nice. And the other characters do get a little more out there. Like obviously Robin, you have to Robin. I think the best way to sum up using a current DLC character is like Hero from Dragon Quest for dummies with all the spells,
Yeah,
but you don't have to worry about like menu reading. And then like
yeah,
everyone else, like Corrin is fun, but Corrin has like a lot of very like slow, heavy movement compared to like the other ones, even though their dragon powers will tear people up.
yeah. So just to correct you real quick, Marth and Ike, not Marth and Roy.
Oh,
They're
really?
pretty much the only ones. Like I don't know. I've played all the other characters, but they're really the only two that I like the way they and Lucina, I should say, but I prefer Marth just for the tipper moves. Just in general, I like the way they feel to play, and that's like most of what I like about Smash Brothers, just the raw game feel and kinesthetics.
I appreciate you for reading my mind because I actually had two Smash Brothers questions for you since we brought up the topic. I did want to know what you thought about Byleth. I'm very curious what you thought of Joker and his stage.
Mementos is actually one of the levels we actually added to our regular rotation at work. Just I do like that stage quite a bit, with or without the wall hazards. I could take them or leave them, honestly, but the basic stage geometry I really like.
I only have one weird complaint with the stage, and it's very odd. I don't know if other stages have anything to compare this to, because even though I bought Smash at launch, I didn't have any of the DLC characters and I hadn't touched any of them until like 2 weeks ago. I don't understand why when the train is going by at the bottom, if someone activates their final smash, you don't get knocked around. It's hitboxes are totally canceled out, and you just phase through the train and will die. It's really weird. That's like the one odd complaint I have. Like I like the wall mechanics and the way things move in Mementos, but the fact that like I've died multiple times because someone is using their final smash while people are on the train and they'll just falter instead of knock back off. It's like the weirdest thing.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely revealing myself to be one of those people, but I gotta say, I don't even remember the last time I've seen a Final Smash that wasn't
Oh,
in like a new character direct that shows it off.
see, I appreciate I like playing all kinds of way with Smash. I will say, even if like I'm playing with people who don't like items, I at least try and guilt them into playing with the final smash meter, just because I enjoy having that extra element of a different move.
Yeah, I've like we've tried that during our work sessions, but honestly, like we've all turned into like such big Smash assholes that we're like, nah, just turn the items and off. We've like experimented with the final Smash meter, the Smash Ball. We pretty much always just like revert back to items off,
With how much I
free
know
for
you
all.
guys play Smash Brothers, you guys are honestly. I'm amazed no one at the office is a hitbox person. Like that's pretty much the only thing you guys are missing just to be like only all you need is a hitbox controller user and someone's playing Project M, and then you guys would pretty much fit the category.
So one person did get a hitbox. He tried it for like a week and decided he didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't.
Went back to
Have you ever used them? Like I get it. My brain can't get it. I can
I
play with the controller. I can play with the joysticks, like arcade joysticks and stuff. But just having everything on a hitbox is just such a weird concept for me.
Yeah, I mean I could get used to it for sure. Like I could probably get good with it, but honestly, like I just like the way the GameCube controller makes the game feel to play. That's like half of the appeal.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of weird, especially because there's no game like that is so associated with the controller. It's actually one of the few reasons why I like playing almost every Smash Brothers game, with the exception of the original. I hate playing the original Smash Brothers just because I think playing on the N64 controller is like such hot trash. And
oh yeah.
but then like playing Melee, playing Brawl, playing Ultimate, and even for Wii U and 3DS, like I would rather play a Smash Brothers on the 3DS's controls with the nub than a N64 controller. That's like how much I did not enjoy that.
I can definitely sympathize with that. I definitely played the heck out of 64 when it came out,
Oh yeah,
but
like at the time, like when there was nothing to compare it to, yeah, it was like wow, there's
yeah,
no fighting game like this. But yeah, going back to it, it's so much slower, which really sucks because I really appreciate like the look. I think Smash Brothers as a game still super holds up from its presentation and even its like
yeah,
low poly look. I think it still looks really good, which is very rare because N64 is the most nostalgia glasses console I think in human history, and most people do not properly know how few good games there are on that are still good.
yeah. And I will say one thing from 64 that I miss in the later games is the sound effects. Like the sound effects from Melee on are pretty much the same kind of design, but the 64 ones are like
Give
Really
me
great
give me an example.
cartoony sound
Are we
effects.
talking like when characters make noises sound effects or like item sound effects?
Yeah, like items, impacts, like the kind of like bounce springs
You're
sound
right.
effect.
Now that I kind of think about it, like the like sound I think of when I think of characters like getting smashed, nowadays kind of sounds like you're hitting a like a tennis ball really hard. Whereas I feel like on N64, I remember that sound being a lot more like kind of like you're smashing like an empty like trash can, kind of like it's that hollow but really loud feeling. So like you really felt different.
Yeah, yeah, like they were like sound effects from like a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Oh man. So going back though, so we talked about Mementos. What is your thoughts on Joker as a character though?
Um, Not really my play style.
Cause
Like
like
I like playing against Jokers, but I didn't really like the way you God, what is it? The I don't even remember what. I guess just the persona meter. Like I didn't like having to manage that. I'm not much of a meter guy in terms of Smash.
like so yeah, I get that as well because it's kind of weird because it's not like a little Mac or a Cloud where you can fill them up pretty quickly because I if I'm remembering correctly, Joker's meter fills up with damage, right?
Yeah, like, and he has the down B counter move while he doesn't have the persona, and if you get hit during that, it'll charge faster.
Yeah, so Joker is kind of like a weird one where he's technically very beginner friendly, but I think a lot more of my friends I know who are a lot more technically advanced into the game just he doesn't do anything for them really. I like playing as him in like a casual kind of way, but he didn't like steal my attention from like any of my other regulars. Like I think in terms of who I play, I tend to go for like weird ones. I'd say right now it's like Cloud, Little Mac, and I guess Terry. I like Terry a lot more than I thought I would, which is a good thing because I'm a big SNK fan. But I just after watching his like reveal, I wasn't really sure how getting my hands on him would feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
I couldn't get into really any of the DLC characters. Like they're just not really my play style.
just because they're a lot more kind of gimmicky focused or multiple
Yeah,
factors.
yeah. I did kind of play Piranha Plant for a little bit,
Yeah,
but none of
Piranha
the
Plant doesn't count. That was a freebie.
yeah,
That basically was the day one patch, 1 month later.
yeah,
I do forget about Piranha Plant though, especially because people don't really talk about that as DLC. Piranha Plant is a good definition of a weird character I like getting added to it. Just like that whole move set I thought was so interesting, especially with like how the movement worked, whether it be like tipping over the pot for like your side B and stuff like that, and just like the animations on Piranha Plant were really really cool. But wow, I'm glad I did not have to pay for him because I don't think they could have made a $6 character Piranha Plant very interesting at all.
yeah. See, I remember being annoyed when they revealed Piranha Plant because every new Smash game has had like the one really weird out there character. Like Smash had God, who was the weird
I
one?
guess
I
for
guess
some
Captain Falcon.
yeah, either that or
He was kind of
Ness.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Then Melee had Game and Watch. Brawl had like
Rob,
Rob. Four had
Duck Hunt.
uh, Duck Hunt and Wii Fit Trainer. That was like the wacky one. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Ultimate like didn't have one except for Piranha Plant.
Well,
Like
because yeah, I think the
Piranha
weird
Plant
thing with
should have like come with
Ultimate,
the game because it needed like the weird new character. It didn't
yeah,
have any.
there was that weird moment of I don't know if you ever felt this when Smash Ultimate came out. There was that moment after the high of release came out where you were like you kind of took a step back, and besides the fact that they brought everyone back and that's really really cool, you then realize, huh, there's like three new stages in this game and like five new characters and everything else is just from past games.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're
But
right. Having that identifiable weird character being held back and then I guess now being DLC is such a weird thing because at least when they did the free DLC character with Mewtwo, it was like, okay, that's like a classic character. And I mean, Jesus, I don't even remember how many new characters, but I remember Smash Brothers for Wii U had a ton of crazy. Like I remember like those reveals were basically all the hype the Wii U had going for it. Anytime a new Smash Brothers character got announced during the Wii U era, with like
Oh
Ultimate,
yeah.
it was such a short time from announcement to release. You didn't really have the chance. Like I think the only big holy shit moments were basically for Castlevania and King K. Rool. But like besides that, there wasn't like those moments of like holy shit, Mega Man, and like holy fuck, like they're actually
Yeah.
doing like the fact that Pac-Man is in that game and works is still crazy. Yeah, the Wii one just had so many different moments. Like you brought up, like I even forget the Wii Fit Trainer, which we live in a society where Wii Fit Trainer is a real thing, has a real amiibo, and somehow no one thinks of that as the immediate joke character.
Yeah. Well, we definitely live in a society. Um, but like we did get another holy shit trailer later, like 6 months post launch, we got Banjo, and that was definitely one of those moments.
That was a crazy moment in terms of I think everyone kind of knew if it was ever going to happen, he was the clear cut third party choice for what's going to happen. Whereas it's really easy to say Steve from Minecraft or like even like the crazy people out there who think like Master Chief or Doom Guy are ever going to come into the game. Like while those are still super duper popular, I think for Nintendo, like they don't really like the idea of having to add a lot of Western elements into Smash Brothers unless they really have to or they're really popular in Japan. And the fact that Banjo as a series has no relevance in Japan at all, like Banjo Kazooie is not popular in Japan when that like the Sakurai presentation for Banjo I thought was so funny. Like they were so candid to the point of Sakurai just being like, "Hey, these are great games. You should play them on your Xbox One with the Rare Replay Collection." To be like, "Oh boy, they are never gonna bring that game over again."
Yeah, that was definitely a crazy moment.
I know. I
Love to
will.
see it.
I will say this. I think the more crazy moment. Did you see Sakurai tweeted out his like PlayStation year in review, like hours spent?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he made a post being like, "Hey, it's the end of the year. All the Smash Brothers characters have been revealed. Blah blah blah." But he posted, "Hey, I did the PlayStation thing, and I think it was somewhere over like 200 plus hours or whatever." And it was just really funny because people like brought up there was like, "Oh my God, Sakurai, how do you like have this much time to like play things?" And it was so funny like. You just kind of think about it, it's like, because he's talked about it, he plays basically everything. He has like every system or whatever. Like, I mean, he picked all these third-party characters. Like, no one associates King of Fighters or Persona with the Switch. Like, you kind of have to expect it comes from somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We got way off topic.
That's hey, you know what? We talked about Joker. We mentioned that we live in a society that's semi-Persona related with Joker and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
same canon. Same canon.
it is. Please tell me, by the way, you've seen the fantastic edit someone did of the Murray scene at the end, but with the Persona HUD on Joker.
I have not seen that, but I can already basically see it in my head.
It's a lot better than it has any right to be because I remember when the movie came out, somehow the Persona memes weren't the first thing to come up. That scene, all the Eric Andre people really got a hold of, but now the Persona kids are having their fun with it, and I am appreciating it very very much so. So I don't even know, man. How have we been talking for almost 90 plus minutes on this? This is
Yeah,
a.
that's crazy.
Should I start wrapping us up and letting you actually enjoy the rest of your Fanta and your night?
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. Um, but I gotta say, shout outs to all of the SMT memers out there. Y'all are killing it. Even though like I haven't played most of the games, I don't get a lot of the jokes. I'm still pretty sure they're funny. I like the aesthetics. Keep at it, guys. Y'all are the best.
Okay, so we're gonna have our big feedback thing, at least for this, is we're gonna have people give you high quality recommendations for what you should probably check out that's realistic. I'm gonna give you my three things right now, and I know one of them you're probably not going to actually like, but the more I've talked to you about this, the more I think you'd actually really like it. Number one, I don't know how you feel about art style, but have you seen the original Strange Journeys art style compared to the 3DS versions?
I've not seen a comparison, no.
Um, basically, the original on DS was done by Kazuma Kaneko, who did like Nocturne and stuff like that. A lot more kind of like less realistically and kind of like more like edgy-ish, not like edgy hardcore meme, and like you kind of know what I mean. In the remake, they had a new artist come in. Oh, I forget his first name, but it's a Doi who done work on SMT4. His style of it translates, so basically, I'd say check out any version of it because the gameplay is practically the same. There's obviously new story, but as anyone who's played an Atlas game that got a enhanced remake, the additional gameplay and story is usually the least creative effort that goes into them for some reason. I would say check out the art style and see which ones you'd like because yeah, Strange Journey is just so cool, so unique, super 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 underloved, and as long as you're like are you I don't know how you feel about this. Like how do you feel about playing handheld games on PC? Because like when I feel like I'm playing a handheld game on on a platform that it wasn't originally designed for, it just feels kind of weird for me personally, and it's just like I know that's like a personal thing, but like, how do you feel about that?
I've done it before, and I would consider doing it for Strange Journey. I'll have to look into that for sure. I would definitely prefer that to like digging out my 3DS at this point. Like it's hard to go back to, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean obviously
The
like
hardware.
yeah, you're not losing anything really even in terms of emulation. Like the emulating of DS and even 3DS games at this point now are very very easy to do. So
Yeah.
any kind of Strange Journey I think would be my number one. My second one, and this is kind of an odd one, but I'm not really.
Actually, hold on. I'm gonna just go on a little tangent here.
Go for it. What's up?
Um, just to waste a minute. So I will preface this by saying these are my opinions and my opinions alone. They don't represent that of any company I associate with. SMT Strange Journey on 3DS got the cover for it got censored uh,
Yeah.
when it got moved to the United States, and I would just like to say, and remember, this represents my opinion and my opinion alone. Fuck the ESRB.
Oh man, yeah, we've talked about
That's
that.
all.
That fun finger gun cover of like, okay, we need to change it because the cover on Strange Journey for 3DS in Japan is the new character Alex holding up her gun to the middle of the screen, and for the Western cover, it's just her holding her hand. So not even like a finger gun. It's just her holding her hand
Yeah,
out. Like, please, ESRB, give me a hand here.
yeah,
You're ruining my cover. I'm
yeah.
glad you brought that up because yeah,
Well,
that is a very true fact. F the ESRB.
yeah. Her like having her hand like that, it kind of transforms the aesthetic from a gritty sci-fi adventure to like an early 2000s synth pop cover album.
Oh my god.
Like she's just like reaching out, look at me, I'm a space girl. You want to dance with me?
I'm only offended
And
because of how right you are. That's the only reason I'm offended because this is just you're stating facts right now. Is what you're doing.
yeah. Anyway, what was your second recommendation? And fuck the
My
ESRB.
my second reco for you. I'm trying to think. I don't know why I didn't ask this. I'm trying to think of not portable ones. Unfortunately, this franchise really loves its portable games. Um, I'm gonna kill my second one because I don't want to recommend another just DS game for you. So I know I've talked to you about this, but my final recommendation I want to give because everything you've talked about from what you've enjoyed and the kind of speed and basically killing a lot of the fluff that most RPGs have. I know you said you played Tokyo Mirage Sessions back when it was on the Wii U. I cannot tell you how much improved the Switch port is. Its speed with like how much it cuts out the loading. The loading is still there, but they've basically cut out about 90% of it. If you skip to the story and don't care about it, its gameplay mechanics are so solid. And I'm halfway through the game in a little under 20 hours. it's like a very manageable like 30 to 40 hours, and the gameplay continues to get better and better and better. Like obviously, if you're not a fan of like J-pop, the story is probably not going to do anything for you. But like if you enjoyed the setting and the music of Persona 4, I think, at least from everything I played so far, because I'm playing P5 and Tokyo Mirage Sessions right now with the Switch version. I personally actually think I like the score better in Tokyo Mirage Sessions than P5, and the story is way less hold your hand and more, okay, let's get you into battles. Dungeons are still unique. They're not the hallways of before. The weird thing with Tokyo Mirage Sessions is like its first two dungeons are kind of meh in terms of their originality, but the rest of them from there get really, really interesting and really unique. So if you ever have a chance to try it, I would at least say, like, if anyone like at the office or somebody knows, like, just get you into a dungeon, and the speed at how fast everything goes, it literally feels like a different game compared to the Wii U version.
Okay. I will consider that the next time I need to get my JRPG fix. I'm not sure when that will be. There's a lot of stuff I want to. Well, after Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'll be playing that.
Well, let's be real. That's going to be a great, like, 10 to 15 hours, but that won't be very long.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
You know what? But
I'm still looking forward to it. Like I don't
yeah,
mind a
like
short game.
a short RPG is one of the most amazing things when done right. I remember when I beat South Park and the Stick of Truth for the first time, I was like, this was a fantastic like 10 to 15 hour RPG. Like, and I still had more stuff to do, but it was just like when a RPG knows like it has a clear beginning, middle, and end, and there's not a lot of stuff to get distracted with on the side, and the story isn't terrible. It's really fun to go through. Like I've experienced that twice with South Park, and Child of Light are really good examples of short RPGs that are done really, really well.
Excellent.
All right, so
All right.
Adrian, if people want to find you and send you very, very good out of context memes, where do you want them to find you online?
I guess my primary presence is on Twitter. I am at Profound Carnage. One word, no, or yeah, that's two words, but no underscore or anything like that. No special characters. Um, I guess the kind of content I put on there, like video game stuff, kind of irritating left-wing politics stuff, the occasional just random crap. It's honestly mostly just random crap. But that is, if you want to contact me, that is the best place to do it. If you want to post memes at me, that is the ideal place to do it.
Man, I gotta
And
say,
from there, you can find links in my bio to the studio that I am currently working on my new game with.
well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I cannot believe we spent this much time actually talking, for the most part, about Atlas and SMT games. I was honest to God, I was thinking we'd maybe talk about it for like 30 to 40 minutes, and then I would shoot the shit with like other things that I thought about bringing up with you beforehand. But I'm glad it went where it did. I've learned about new things. The whole world. There will be dozens upon dozens of new people wondering where my Muse HD port is.
Oh man. Now you've got that in my head again. Now I'm thinking about, oh man, should I do that?
I mean, I'm just saying, if you have the files, and there would be fun ways to like put it out there. Because I watched at least 15 minutes of footage while talking with you. That does not look like a bad game.
I mean, it's not a bad game. It's a very short game. It's an underwhelming game, but like if you're curious, and if at some point I do put that out there, you will probably have a good time for like an hour or two, maybe.
Okay. You know what? I actually have a question I want to ask you that, depending on what your answer is, may or may not be the blooper slash in post end song question of this. But I still want to say goodbye to everybody. They can find you on Twitter, all that other stuff. If you would like to follow me, the really quick, easy stuff, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at SMT Network. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Torchwood4SP. We have a Facebook group you can join by going to facebook.com/groups/SMT Network. And there's a YouTube page. If you just search up Shin Megami Tensei Network, you can find the podcast on there. We're back on iTunes. We should be on Google Play's podcast equivalent and other apps, but those always take forever to kind of change. But hey, hooray, we're back on iTunes. It took 9,000 years, but all the old episodes are there. So if you want to hear me all the way back in 2012 try and pretend like I know what Shin Megami Tensei is, that is a thing. You can go back to our earliest episodes now. I'm now re-shamed myself to put them back onto iTunes. But yeah, so we're just going to say goodbye. Adrian, do you have any final words for everyone before our outro music plays?
Semper Games.